husband's brother and family have lived in that area always. They never lived in Washington Heights. So we joined where my husband's family belonged.
What shul was that?
That was, what is it called? Kingsbridge Jewish Center. And so, but after a while, we also joined the Kingsbridge Jewish. Do you know Riverdale? Do you know the Bronx?
I know the Bronx.
Okay. The Kingsbridge Jewish Center is down onto 31st Street. Riverdale is up, and eventually we also joined Rabbi Weiss. Have you heard?
Hebrew Institute?
Hebrew Institute, right. So we belong to both.
He's a very active man, Rabbi.
He's a very active man,
Uh-huh.
and I must tell you, when my husband passed away, I had such support.
I'll be Weiss.
He himself, but he has two young people who are very special. And I got all the support from them, and I still do today.
I want to ask, this, so later in life, the two of you, you'd spent so many years together. It must have been very difficult to each go off in a different direction and not see each other on Shabbos.
It was, but we managed to get into the city
On holidays,
already.
we would come to you, or you to us.
Do you
right?
speak to each other on the phone every day?
Sometimes.
Not that often.
No, it depends. It depends.
Now, not as much as we used to, but we used to talk every day.
And now we talk
Right,
once,
yeah.
twice a week,
Right.
whenever something important comes up, for
Right.
sure.
So you're going to stay in New Jersey, that's your
No,
plan?
I moved to Connecticut 2 years ago.
Oh,
where
sorry.
Helen is.
Oh, I didn't know.
I
Okay.
moved to West Hartford because
Oh, good.
I was isolated out there in New Jersey. So Helen decided I had
Oh,
to move.
you're together with your husband, or he's not?
My husband died 19 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah, and so 2 years ago, I moved to Connecticut. And there was an apartment house being built that was around the corner from her and from my grandson. I'm in the middle between the two of them.
And she gets to see all her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren all the time.
And my daughter lives in Newton, Massachusetts.
Right, my sister's in Newton, so she's
So I
much closer
see
to that
them.
whole part of the family as well.
what a time.
Yeah.
So I moved to West Hartford for that reason. So I'm
You
just
joined
a-
another shul?
Yes, when they belong young as well. Yeah.
And how's that experience compared to the other ones?
It takes longer. I'm older and it's a younger congregation. And so they don't have many people my age. So it's...
No more clicks, huh?
No more clicks, no more, not anybody to talk to.
The nice thing, though, my mother's in an apartment building rather than in a house. So there
Oh,
are
so you
people
in the building?
right in the building, right on her floor, in fact, that she's gotten friendly with, that she plays cards with, and, yeah.
Yeah.
Nasta?
No, I play bridge.
You play canasta too.
I know, but
And
right now.
barbecue, whatever
I
comes
know, but-
along.
But I got,
Yeah.
I got together with people through the Hadassah.
Thank you for sharing.
At one point, I have a movie to show you also.
My official name now is Marguerite, because when I was, well, first of all, when we got out of concentration camp, we were 10 girls, and there must have been 5 or 6 by the name of Margaret.
Yeah.
So everybody got a different name, and my name was Margaret Gretel, so I became Marguerite. But then when I was hiding, I became Marguerite Gauthier. And after the war, I did not, in France, Margaret doesn't sound nice. So I left the Marguerite and I went back to Kansas. So when I came here, my official name's Marguerite.
But wasn't it also
What's that
that
got to
if
do
you
with
had
Gunther?
a German name that the Germans
Gunther's a
would know?
family
And
name.
Well, yeah,
that
of
was
course.
her original, her
But also,
name.
they told
Well,
the kids not to have a German name.
Well, that
and to
stands
take on
for
a different name.
that stands for
For
reason.
survival.
You know, that,
And-
while
of
hiding, it
course.
stood for reason that that's what you did. So I became Marguerite. And then after the war, when I had to go and rechange my name, I gave them my other papers, my false papers, and I left Marguerite. And so my official name is Marguerite.
And I'm picking up this color, red. You see this deep red? It shows throughout.
Just the relationship of the men and the women.
Yeah, it's the same thread she's using here. It's this deep red. Yeah. Okay, so the talus bag holds the talus, right? But the talus bag is this feminine fabric, which means the woman. So the female is holding the male, the talus is male, right? So it's the place that holds. She holds him, he holds her. So that's what I was trying to do.
And in that cycle, when my mom was sitting, I think where you were sitting, you looked down at your husband, and your husband looked up. I mean, I remember always seeing Daddy.
Well, we had the seats across from where they were,
so
we
so
could
if my
see
father
them.
were here,
Not below, but across.
if my father was here,
Right, 'cause your
Jane,
husband
my
was right
mother
below
was
you.
here,
Right,
and their eyes could meet,
right.
their hearts could meet, their souls could meet. So she caught it.
So what you
That's
have,
what's amazing.
so and you see the lines continue, right? There are two different taluses. I also find that the striping of all these different black and white taluses is really interesting. There are all these different patterns. They're not all the same.
Tell them
and
how you
so-
washed each one.
Oh, each one is washed and
She took
ironed.
each one and washed.
I mean, this one is, okay, so, yeah, no, actually, I put them in the washing machine, but yeah, on the gentle side. Okay, so there's this little cord here that actually comes from this thing that I found in order to make a atara. And the names that are in here, I put some names in. It was last minute. I invented the names because I didn't have a list. Later on, somebody gave me a list of names. So I invented, I put in Heinz, Cohen, I just invented names, German names. Okay, so that's where the key shows up there. Then I decided, then a long time passed between this and the next one.
Wait, so was this the first piece you did?
No, this was the first piece.
And from the time you were at the synagogue till you finished this, what was the event? I would like to know your timeline.
I can get the date, but it was, I did this, I finished those two pieces for that. I need deadlines. Don't you need deadlines to get anything done? I can't function without deadlines.
I'm a yakka, so I don't need it.
You don't need a deadline. I'm not quite a yakka, so I need a deadline. And it was for the Pomegranate Society, the Jewish women's needlework. They had I had recently joined them. They had a convention in New Jersey, and you could bring something, and it was not juried. So there was, I didn't.
Where in New Jersey?
Near Teaneck. And I told them, and they asked you what size. You bring us pretty big pieces. And this is 5 feet across.
5 feet across and 5 feet down.
4 feet down.
Oh my God.
That's big. That's big, right? So I told them it's big. You have room for these, yes. So I finished. I was doing my last minute stuff. The names in this thing, the names that I was inserting here, I had typed them up, and I was inserting them at the convention.
Okay, so I'm saying, was it a year later, 6 months later, 3 years later? I'm still trying to get a sense of...
No, it's 2 years between conventions. We just had one in June.
About
So-
a year and a half.
I'd say more than a year or two.
No, 2 years between June. So June of this year is 2009, 2007. So I had them finished 2007. So maybe a year gone by, a year and a half. And what I did here, I realized, I don't know who these people are, but I don't mean any disrespect. I have this notion of what I want to do that I had to play with a long time before I pushed it. One is that first shock of seeing the benches upstairs in the balcony and seeing it disappears in the vanishing perspective, right? So that was the thing that really stuck by me the whole time, that vanishing perspective of those 2 benches going off filled with cushions. So that's what I was doing here. So I recreated that. But then so what you've got is the whole shul, right? So there's one right side, left side. And other people said to me, oh, I saw railroad tracks. I said, that's fine, that works
But you
too.
said you saw that.
I said, some of them got to America, others went down the railroad tracks. And I decided that the background, the canvas, was going to be a tallis. And that what I wanted was something that was part of an Orthodox woman's life, that was like a tzitzis. And what I came up with was the challah, which is braided, which is, I mean, there are very few commandments that an Orthodox Jewish woman has to perform. One of them is the taking of the challah. The other is the mikvah, reproduction, mikvah. Tzniut, modesty, parts of Orthodox life. Even though I know this wasn't the Breuer shul, I don't know this, all I know is orthodoxy of thinking about it. So the first one I came,
Oh, definitely.
the first one I came up with was the hair that, see, this is not quite that orthodox. Cutting your hair and covering it after you get married.
Not that, nobody.
Right, but this I didn't know, right?
Few, like Mrs. Newhouse cover your hair.
This is Newhouse. Yeah.
Somebody told me that they
Mrs.
only...
Newman, a few, but it was
But
rare.
they were the ones who
Rare.
were
Those were Breuer.
You, in my mind,
No,
don't
we're
know.
talking about.
Mrs. Newhouse belonged to Breuer, too.
She did,
Oh, yeah.
even though her husband was rabbi.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, but they were connected.
Okay.
So this was what I worked on, was orthodoxy. So it's a braided hair, and it's real hair, a braid, a girl's braided hair. And then here's the challah I made out of plastiline fimo. I made a challah.
And a what?
It's a material that you can
Emo.
fimo. It's like
Yeah, I know what it is.
you cook it.
Play-Doh.
It's like a
Phyllo
clay.
dough.
But it's like a clay, and then you heat it up in the oven, and it hardens.
Oh, okay. Okay.
People
So
make
there-
jewelry out of it sometimes.
Yes, exactly, a lot.
Yeah.
So there's the challah, which is braided, and over here is an umbilical cord.
Oh my God. That would have done Mom Daddy telling us. I mean,
Well, I found the picture online, and you work on how do you get it to look wet and slimy. Clear nail polish does the job very well, and getting the color just right. I painted it, you painted it. So, and I put a regular tied tzitzis here, but with a red thread, so no one would think I was making a male tallis.
Is that the menstruation of it?
Red, it's red. That's up to you.
The red image is, in the calendar a couple of times.
Okay.
Yeah. You remember the story of Ohav and Jericho? She gets saved by putting out a red.
Red.
Remember, she saves Joshua, and he says, we'll come back to the destroyer town, but we'll save you.
Can you jump ahead of it, Jamie, because I want to introduce
Okay.
you.
So I did, this woman came last. First I had the idea that I was going to put the cushions back in. These are the fabrics. Each row has all of the cushions that I had, significant amounts of
So
fabric.
you found that many cushions?
Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If you think of 12 cushions, and they're repeated. See this?
What she said, can I just interrupt?
Oh, maybe it's not. It's 24. It's double. So it's,
She said they threw them over the edge. What she told me is they then sat on the steps of Ohav Sholaum and ripped them apart.
not
No,
at home, at home.
Oh, at home.
I got home, and I sat down on the outside of my house, started taking them apart. I have a friend who's a textile curator. I said, what am I going to do? He said, you clean them up and take them apart and wash them and everything. I'll come and tell you about them. So I sat there and I started noticing that I take one fabric off, there was another fabric underneath. It was doing archaeology.
There's another fabric underneath.
Yeah.
Probably they wore out. People recovered them rather
Exactly.
than start from
Sure.
fresh.
So this was a round one. And then when I had my stack of fabrics, it looked like this. And then he came and he said, 1930s dress silk, 1950s kitchen curtains, 1970 upholstery,
Oh my
1960s.
God!
Right,
Amazing.
right. So these were remnants
Wow.
of fabric and
That
of
they
people.
used, right,
And of people. The
right.
remnants of Europe and the remnants of the
Because
fabric.
people in those days were pretty frugal. Probably people didn't go out to a store and say, I want to
They
buy a
couldn't
yard.
afford it, help.
Right.
You know, there were a couple of cushions like that.
Yeah.
That looked like they were cushions from some chairs that they weren't using anymore.
Like, that makes sense.
Of course it makes sense. So now I'm stuck with this big white space in the middle, and I'm thinking I need a focus, and I decided I would make a woman, and I would make a seamstress, and I would make her making a cushion. So she's making a cushion, and the cushion has the stripes that belong to this one. And they're in the same diagonal. So we're pulling it together. And this creature is made up of a lot of pieces. I don't know why I did it. It doesn't even show. But I did it like a patchwork. There's the pieces. This is the drawing of the woman. And I cut it up, and each piece is covered with a fabric, and then each one is attached to the next one. And there she is, and it's me, you see. But I reversed it. I said, Ken, I need to get the action of the hand. So I would go like this. I said, take the picture. Take the picture. You know, what does it look like? What does the hand actually, what are the fingers doing? So I liked being in it because I'm a seamstress. My grandmother was a seamstress. I'm sure her mother was a seamstress. And so there we are, piecing together life.
Right, right.
And I felt that it was all meaningful that way.
So I'd like to get you to say your names and when you came to Ohav Sholaum.
And let me go to the bathroom.
I mean, come on, you have to do important
This is being
things first.
dancing.
Go ahead.
So
So
this
should I clean up the table here? I have dessert after.
wait a second. This is number 3. This is how the sizes of them, so you can see them in proportion. This is number 3. It's the same message as this, but it's more impressionistic. See, they're upstairs, all the flowers. The fabrics are now cut like flowers, and the taluses are downstairs. They're the stems. They can't exist without each other. And when you
But each
stand,
one saw from the
when you stand here, you have to turn your head up to look because it's 10 feet tall.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well,
this is
then
the
look up
proportion.
and see the woman.
This is 5 feet, and then this is about 5 feet tall. Too.
What is that?
That's the women's heads,
Oh, that's
The
what-
9
yeah,
heads.
I'm having trouble seeing.
and they're behind a mafitza,
Right.
a triangular mafitza.
The heads are amazing. I mean, every. Can I just start? You know, you've all heard this. I don't think Ken has, but I remember when we met you on Face Off, and you said Google me. So I Googled you. You know, it was 11:30 at night. I was doing nothing, and I said, okay, I'll Google this guy, right? So I Google you, and I'm reading down, and it says Jane Trezier, artist. Well, I was more interested in her than you. Okay, when it said artist, I mean, because the books don't turn me on, but artist did. You know, I knew nothing about Jane. You know, it was more you who talks. And I did selected works immediately because I come out of an art background. And it was like, I'm reading this thing, and I'm saying, this cannot be. I mean, I'm reading about this synagogue, and Ohav Sholaum, and I'm saying, this isn't what I think it is. And I read it like 5 times till I looked at the picture, and really, because I was reading the words first, and it hit me. Oh my God! It was 11. It was like then 12 o'clock at night. Couldn't wake up my husband. Couldn't call my mother. Couldn't call my cousin. I was like, oh my God! I think I emailed you then, right? I mean, it was like I had to tell somebody that I know what this is. This is part of my life. You know, it was bizarre to have found it. You know, it was like really for sure.
Sure.
I mean, you know,
It was so unlikely.
It was right,
Unlikely.
right. But if you know my life, it really wasn't.
There's so many stories like this.
That's why you always have to follow up on things.
Yeah.
That's why you just have to keep, you have to keep yourself open to the world to come to you. That's what happened to you. You know?
My daughter moved to a house in Baltimore. She was in Baltimore, one of them. And one of her neighbors threw a little get-together so she could meet some of the neighbors. And she's talking to this one guy, and he says, "Where are you from?" And she says, "West Hartford, Connecticut." And he says, "Oh, do you know the Lowe's?" And she says, "I am a Lowe's." And this is somebody we knew in another town when we lived in Binghamton, and he made the connection that we had moved to West Hartford. Now he's living 2 doors away from my daughter. And what are the odds that they would even make that connection? It's just
That's funny.
bizarre. Yeah.
That's funny. But this is such an honoring.
I left home. I came here at the age of 17. My mother gave me this book.
The Fanny Noida.
Yes, I have it. Stunden
Can you-
der Andacht.
Can you read the rest?
Yeah, of course. Stunden der Andacht, meaning hours of reflection. Gebet und Erbauungsbuch. Prayer and Erbauung. I don't know how to translate that.
Meditation.
To build up.
Inspiration.
Yes,
Find
inspiration,
strength.
right. Israel's Frauen und Jungfrauen, women and girls. A Jungfrau is a girl before she gets married. Zur öffentlichen und häuslichen Andacht, to be used in synagogue as well as at home. Und sowie für alle Verhältnisse des weiblichen Lebens. It's for every facet
Every situation of
a woman's life. Und von Fanny Neuda, geborene Schmidt, ich denke, beten Sie bei mir, erhören und gewähren in des höchsten Land, Hand. I don't know, this is a psalm. I don't know.
So could you tell us your name and your connection to Ohav Sholaum when you started going?
My name is Ende Gutman. My husband and I joined Ohav Sholaum after the building was already erected. We were not part of the building. And we made many friends there. We sent our children to Hebrew school there. And it became like an extended family. And the people who are still alive today, whom I am in touch with, my husband passed away 7 months ago, we still feel this closeness that we've always felt.
Where did you live in Inwood? What was your address?
First, when we got married, we lived on Hillside Avenue, and then we moved to Bogadu's place.
Number 20.
Number 20 Bogadu's, right.
The bottom of Fort Washington.
And when did you come here from Germany?
1938, in September 1938.
And when you came here in 1938, where did you settle?
I was alone. And where did I settle? I had an uncle, but I had jobs with families.
You couldn't support you.
Because I actually had no home.
So you lived in Inwood? Where did you live?
In Washington Heights, yes.
And how come you selected Washington Heights as the place to live?
So your uncle was.
Because of your
Yes,
uncle.
yes.
There were a lot of other German Jews there.
I didn't know anybody when I came,
But that's because uncle was there.
but it was very popular for German Jews to settle in Washington Heights.
Why did you select this shul as the one to go to as compared to any other Orthodox shul?
Well, when we got married, my husband came from Bavaria. We joined Rabbi Berwald what was he called? Beth Hillel. And when it was time to send Carol to Hebrew school,
I'm the old.
we wanted to join Ohav Sholaum because it was within a few blocks walking distance. Not because we didn't drive on Shabbos. My husband was religious. But it was convenient, so we could share with neighbors. Today you bring the children, next time I bring the children. It was a, how shall I say, we shared. We didn't have babysitters per se.
You didn't have family?
We didn't, right, we did not have family.
Instead of a carpool, it was a walking pool.
Huh?
You had a walking pool.
You
Yes.
all you used each other as family.
Yes, and we became more or less family. My sister came when Carol was 1 year old. Yes, okay.
Please give us your name and your maiden name and where you're from.
My name is Margot Jeremias. My maiden name is Günther. And what else did you ask?
Where you came from in Germany.
Oh, Hoffenheim near Heidelberg.
And where were you during the war?
All over France. First in concentration camp in Gurs, and then in the concentration camp of Greifswald. And I was able to get out of there after a year and a half, and I went to a children's home in Beaulieu. After 3 months there, the Germans came to get me back to the concentration camp because they started deporting to Auschwitz. So I was able to hide first in woods, then I was in a convent, and then I was with a French family as a maid until the war ended.
How did you come to America? How was that arranged?
My sister, Inga, and her husband got me here. They gave me an affidavit.
How did you find each other? You knew where she was living in America?
Throughout the whole time that I was hiding, I kept nothing except a little piece of paper, and on it was 248 Audubon. Now I knew this was the address where my sister would be. I knew her name, and I knew the city. So I gave this address to the Red Cross, and they found her. And it took, until I heard from her, it took about 6-7 months. And then I just got a package from her, and nothing written any place. It was terrible. And,
Probably you weren't allowed to put messages
oh,
in.
right. But I didn't know that.
Yeah.
By then she was married already.
So when you came to America, where did you move to?
To my sister.
You lived with your sister?
I lived with my sister until I got married.
How old were
2
you
years.
when you came over?
I was 20.
So it was her sister, her husband, and I was 1 year
And
old.
Günther.
And we,
So how come you weren't here before?
that's an interesting question.
My mother had an uncle who sent the affidavit only for me. He started.
She was older and she could work.
He started the procedure when I was 16 because legally you don't have to go to school anymore after you're 16. So it took a year for this paperwork. So I came here September the 10th, and I was 17 August 11. And my mother's uncle had actually nothing anymore to do with me. They knew that right away there's a family. They stuck me into
To take care of how many kids?
7 kids. The oldest older than I. I think I lasted a month. And then I got a job with one child, and so it went on for years. I went from family to family.
Jewish families?
Yes, only Jewish families, yes. And the last family allowed me to go to school at night. They lived in downtown Manhattan, Knickerbocker Village, and I could walk over to Center Street and take night courses.
Do you remember the family names of some of these families? Starting backwards, that last family.
Pollack. And one family's name was Selig. Those were two. And the first one, I don't remember, with the 7 kids this was.
Were they all Orthodox families?
No.
So
Nobody was Orthodox.
Did they keep kosher? Did you keep kosher before you went?
No, I was not Orthodox.
So it wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah, but at home we were growing up you were, right?
I was brought up Orthodox, but I think when you are thrown into the world at such a young age, all you think about is survive.
No one's judging.
No.
Let's go back. We're going to do a repeat.
Here, it's taping right now.
Let's do a repeat of the names of the people.
Well, it could be both of them saying this.
Something.
But the dishes are going to
Who were
interfere.
the people you remember from the shul?
Wait a second.
You just direct us.
At the end.
Who were the people you remember?
Okay, we'll start out with our closest friends. Let's start with
Margan Odo.
Marlon Otto Hahn, Siggy and Bertha Stern, Alice and Arthur Stern, Leo and Ilse Rosenbaum, Bernheimer,
Alice and Lou.
and then those were our immediate friends whom we used to eat in the sukkah with,
Right.
one evening.
Once a year.
One-
On Sundays usually.
Yes, we were with our children.
Did you bring your own food?
Yeah.
Oh yes,
I remember going. You remember
You
that?
remember that?
I remember that.
And
And
we used to bring out food and eat the sukkah on Sundays. Yeah,
once every
Sundays
year.
once
usually.
every year, and
Right.
then there were Freund and Zürndorfer and
Weiler.
Nudem and Weiler and I can enumerate everybody who is in this book, but
We know them all.
And at the social
My
events,
husband
you
was
had
with
tables where you would all sit together, like if it was a dinner for New Year's Eve, or it was a
Yes.
dinner for Purim, or
And
whatever.
that's where sisterhood came in. We placed the people. I mean, I was active in that, to place the people together this evening.
Did you have Friday night gatherings,
No.
dinners?
No.
How about Saturday kiddush?
no,
No kiddush.
no,
On the,
After the end of the service, you went
we
no,
home.
went home.
we went home.
Right.
So there was no opportunity to gather socially after shul.
No.
Not
People
on Shabbat.
didn't invite other families over. The kids would have their friends come, right? But
It was not part of that culture.
Oh, but they
not at
also
all.
were in small apartments. It's not like today where you can have 10
right.
people around a
You couldn't
table.
do
You
it.
didn't have that kind of room.
No, but even after service in shul, you didn't have a kiddush.
No, we didn't.
Right.
On a very
The
rare
children did at the
occasion.
children's services. I remember when I went to the children's services, Daddy would come downstairs and we would get something after the
But
service
that's
for
my-
children.
Yeah.
That I remember.
Simchas Torah was very special in the shul.
Yes, we got
Oh,
candy
yeah.
bars.
Well, there's a German tradition. The kids would come in. Every kid would get a flag, and and an apple, and they would bring in some kind of bag. Could be a shopping bag. Could be something homemade,
Walk
whatever.
around like Halloween.
And all the adults would bring candy. And during the Hakafot, the kids would follow the Torahs around and walk all through the shul, including up to the women's section, and everybody would throw candies into their bag. And so you come home with this load of candy.
Which we gave out on Halloween.
Which is very true. I remember.
I can remember a big swap. You'd meet with your friends and you'd trade, try to get rid of what you didn't like and get more of what you loved.
You got a flag too when you
But the
walk
tent-
around.
But that's what
It's a wonder nobody's eye was poked out with those flags.
But the synagogue gave a Hershey's tin is, I don't remember what kind of chocolate, I mean, I'm such a chocoholic, I remember that. That you got from the synagogue.
But that was a special silver children's service on Simcha's
Is there chocolate
Now,
For the
yeah,
children.
it was, yeah.
There was a special children's service for the kids.
When you say it's a German-Jewish custom, is this something you remember from Germany?
Yes,
Marching around?
Yes.
With getting candy?
Yes.
On Simchat Torah?
I don't know if we got candy, we got grapes. I remember grapes.
My husband's also German-Jewish, and he went to a totally different synagogue and they did the same thing.
Oh yes,
Definitely
that
a
was
German-Jewish
definitely a
tradition.
German-Jewish thing.
My husband is also German-Jewish, but he did not belong to a German-Jewish synagogue.
Yeah, so then he didn't grow up with that.
But okay,
Interesting
we
that
got
we-
that.
both of us
We
got
got a flag
German-Jewish,
also in Germany,
sure.
but I remember grapes. You couldn't buy chocolate in that days the way we do today. So
No good
that's-
either.
No good either.
So you were saying there were masquerade parties, right?
Well, yeah, on Purim. Oh yes, yeah.
And
Well,
New Year's
New
Eve
Year's
parties.
Eve parties.
And then there were others, there's one or two others, because I remember
Hanukkah parties.
Hanukkah.
Yeah, the weekly card games.
And
There's a
during
lot
the
going
week,
And what happened was that the men had one week and the women another. We couldn't afford to go out together because we couldn't afford babysitters. So it was arranged the men had one week and the women another. And this is how we basically survived without families and without being able to afford to have babysitters. That's
So
how
what
we
game,
arranged
the
it.
women played canasta, what did the men
Canasta,
play?
Scott.
yeah, did the men meet during the week to study Talmud? Were there afternoon
No.
classes?
No, that was
That was
not
not that level of Orthodox.
That was not that level. No.
It was
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Can you tell me some of the occupations of the men who were in the shul? What they did for a living?
Various, many were salesmen.
Butchers, a bunch of
Butchers.
butchers.
There were a lot of butchers.
lot of
A lot of butchers,
My father was an engineer. He
which
lucky
was
enough to-
unusual.
Right, because he was able to go to college on the GI Bill after the war. And he was also the president of the shul for many, many years, my father.
Can you tell me some of the names of the presidents of the shul?
Oh yeah, it's here.
Oh, okay.
All of them are here.
Okay.
They're all here.
So, go ahead, sorry. So he was an engineer.
Yeah, and what else do people do?
Siggy was working for White.
Oh, and Otto
And
Hahn
Otto
was
was
a
a
baker.
baker.
Baker. Where was
Yeah.
the bakery?
On,
179th Street?
no,
No.
Dyke
200.
Street.
And Dyke.
And there was
You're
a-
talking about Grünebaum's.
And Dern.
No,
No, Grünebaum was
there,
not there.
there was a very small Orthodox bakery on Dykeman Street between Seaman Avenue and, help me,
Towards the river.
Yeah.
I don't know
what
what street that was.
Yeah, Payson Avenue.
Mm.
Right.
She
There was a
was
very
there.
small bakery,
And he worked
and
there.
there were Orthodox.
Sova Bakery? Sova?
No.
No, Stern.
They were not in existence anymore
And
when this was
when you went
printed.
shopping, where would you go shopping?
Dykeman Street.
What were the names of the stores you went to?
You went to Nagel Avenue.
There were many kosher butchers on Dyckman Street.
Can you name
You
some of
had-
them?
One
Yes.
was Stern,
One was
Strauss, Stern,
Stern,
Berliner,
Berliner.
Berliner. That's it.
And then Glockenfalk lady.
Glockenfalk.
No,
that
no, no.
was
But that's Washington Heights, not Inwood.
That's, there may
down.
have been another one here. A Berliner,
who is friendly with who's still alive in Baltimore.
Gutman?
Oh, a Lemberger.
Yes.
They didn't have a butcher store on Dykeman Street.
No?
No.
Do you remember all these kosher butchers?
I remember some. I remember. Well, I guess I was older. I remember going more to Glockenfalk and
That's
places
what I
like that.
remember. That's what I remember.
No.
Yeah, but
And they'd have Auschnitz.
But that's we
Auschnitz
went
is.
for up
And
there
the
for
kids, if you went with
Auschwitz.
your parents, you'd always get a free piece. So you could eat right on the spot.
My uncle was the manager of the one in Washington Heights.
Right.
Not by the hospital, the one that came on Nagel Avenue.
Yeah, I remember going there.
Where would you get your vegetables and your fruits?
They have
in
about
the
many
neighborhood.
food stores. On Dyton Street, there was one after the other.
Yeah,
There
and
was one
Nagel,
big-
where we lived,
and-
many.
Yeah, we
every
went
block.
on Dyton Street.
You walked
We went-
everywhere.
Every
And
block.
they would send you your whatever.
There were no supermarkets in the 50s.
Yes,
There was
What was there?
Grand Union on Broadway.
And you have,
I don't know, remember Harriet was a cashier.
there was one on Nagel Avenue, but I don't
One on
remember the name.
Nagel and one on Broadway.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
But the one on-
A&P was on Broadway.
The one by us was a Grand Union.
And when you met in shul, the women, when you were together upstairs, did you speak German to each other?
No,
No more German.
no more.
No more
German.
German.
This generation.
How about
My children,
the older generation?
They
We
did.
didn't have older children. We had no parents, so we don't know.
well, no,
But
Inge, some older
The older people did,
They
Melanie.
did,
You were
yes,
younger.
Yeah, they
You
did.
were the young
Yeah.
generation of this
We,
temple.
when I came, I needed to learn English, and I did not want to speak it, German. As a matter of fact, when I came, I spoke only French. I couldn't even speak to her in German because
remember
I
it.
wanted to forget it. Took me 3 days, remember? She thought I put on an accent, I didn't.
This is why I say she and I got along so well, because we spoke the same language. I didn't speak German or English or French.
You were one, yeah.
I was 1 year
I
old, and
wanted
somehow
to
we
forget it.
connected.
Would you give us your name and your connection?
I'm Carol Gutman, maid, and I'm Inge and Nathan Gutman's daughter. And I grew up in Washington Heights, and remember very vividly the neighborhood as a child, as being a first-generation American from 2 parents who had lost both their parents, and how that impacted me as a child. And I remember seeing older people, couples walking around. And remember once I was 4 or 5 or 6 and came running home and said to my parents, "I found your parents." I mean, the impact it had on me, because when I was born, they didn't know what had happened to their parents. And that always stayed with me in terms of just even my name. There was an argument about my name. Which
How to name you?
How to name me, right. And it impacted my whole development. I mean, in terms of who I am and how I think of the world. And
So you named after one of the grandparents?
I named it, well, you want to tell, I wasn't, you tell them, because that's the story I heard my whole life.
I wanted her to be named after my mother.
This was 1945.
But we did not know at the time if there would still be a Mario. My husband wanted her to be named after a relative who is deceased. But then he agreed it could be Carol because he had a relative by the name of Carol. So in my heart, she's named after my mother,
What is
Whose
your
name
mother's
is
name?
Carol?
Carolina.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And this is stories that I, incorporated. But I remember also Shabbat being a very special time in our house. I remember being in Ohav Sholaum and being in the men's section, because when you were a little girl, you could be in the men's section, and the love that my father would envelop me with. And I'm actually having a talit made in memory of him. So I remember his protection. But I felt it very much when I was with him as a kid in that children's section. And I felt, it's very interesting as he's left us, and it's something I know I always knew, but it comes more to me. There was a spirituality to my father that already as a 6-year-old I felt. And it lives very deep within me. And but I remember how much this temple and my parents and how much it meant to them. Very, very much. And the community. I mean, we were a community. And all the children felt we were all everybody was together. And we just had a reunion, how many years ago? 2 or 3 years ago, people who were born in 1945, 46, and 47, somebody organized, and Dr. Ruth Westheimer came. And it was stories of that age range. And just what it was growing up together, and who the parents were, and how they related. No, she's 49. She's 49. It was just this particular age group.
And Rabbi Newhouse?
Rabbi Newhouse was a very unusual rabbi who a lot of the kids and people did not like. But there was, it's interesting because I had a different relationship with him given I had some special needs. I was paralyzed as a kid. And there was something about him that related to me in a very different way. And his initial training was as a social worker, not a rabbi. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that came through when it had to. So that was another level, but I don't know if everybody felt that. I think only certain people. I know that one person became a social worker because of him. Who's that? Fred Noonan.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So it depended how you related to him.
But he visited you every week.
Yeah. So I had a special relationship with him.
But he visited people in the hospital all the time.
Which is a rabbi's main role, probably.
Right.
I mean, you know.
Right, that's...
But he had a social work school. He had something that some rabbis, like the one we have, have the training, and they have the, sometimes can make speeches.
Right.
But there was something deep within this
Sholaum.
man that
Yeah,
I
Sholaum.
could feel.
Yeah,
The same
yeah.
way I felt my father.
How did he come across to the shul in terms of his personality? Was he very stern? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying? Very, very German.
I think he was a little bit distant.
When we
When
say
you
all
say
the
it,
children,
Yeah, yeah, so I'm saying, but very stern. Just
the children couldn't.
They were to be seen, but not to be heard.
Definitely. It was a distance.
Unless you had a special need, unless you had a special need like me, where he really did connect.
Right. So you had an unusual
I had an
relationship
unusual
with him
relationship
because you
with
saw
him.
him much more and
On a very different level.
Right.
I want to ask, in this extended family, how did you deal with arguments?
Who argued?
No one argued?
you don't argue with German.
Well, Dad had to deal with stuff as a president.
Yes,
You
it
mean in the
did.
shul?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, at the shul.
Yeah.
How
Of course
did
it
you?
was
How did?
stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
you've got the shul piece, and then you've got the social piece. Did you ever have sort of situations that were hard to deal with?
There was one. Remember?
I'm sure there was more than one.
That I can remember, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
it
remember. I
was
was a
dealt
kid.
well.
Can you speak of it?
It actually had to do with a child that
Helen and I are going to laugh.
Go ahead.
me too that misbehaved toward another child.
Yeah.
And the father was very stern to that child, and the parent minded it.
Uh-huh.
And so it became part of the rabbi's peacemaking
Intervention.
intervention. Okay.
And did it work?
Yeah.
So
For a while, yeah.
Rabbi Newhouse did do a good job of that.
Eventually, yeah.
Eventually.
How were his sermons?
Not too good.
Not inspiring.
Did
No.
people in the community, was there anybody that got divorced?
Lottie Eichengreen.
Oh, she did?
And
Oh,
did that
yes.
was that a?
But that was unusual.
Bad thing.
Yeah, but it was
Yeah,
unusual.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
didn't get divorced.
Right.
No, not generally.
Did people
but
talk about
was
it?
A very bad. I'm saying something
How
now.
old was Melvin when that happened?
Mel, I don't remember, but this was a nasty.
He was an
divorce.
abusive.
No, the father was very nice. I don't know what happened.
Did they both stay in the community?
Yes.
Yes, they both belong to Ohav, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
And they stayed.
And,
And they both loved Melvin very much.
Melvin had
They did a
a
very good job
wonderful
of that.
home with his father, apart from his mother,
Uh-huh.
who then married Bob Eichengreen.
Right.
But this was
Was it a shanda?
no, it was not nice the way Lottie and her parents handled this regarding this child. I remember one time it was the father's weekend to have Melvin. And the grandfather had him in synagogue. And the father came and wanted to take him. And there was a whole big thing.
But how did the rest of the synagogue?
No, what
react?
they want to
What
know
they wanna know
is if
how
it
does
was
look like
considered a
That's
shandy
what
that
we
you
said.
had the divorce. And yes.
It depended what kind of a divorce and for what reason.
Okay.
But
it was
there
unusual
was no,
in
there
Canada.
were no, I don't know of any other divorce.
Right.
It was not
Common.
usual.
Yeah.
So when it happened, it was something you talked about.
Would you give us your name and your connection to these people?
Sure. My name is Helen Jeremias Lowe, and I'm Margot Jeremias' daughter. So I grew up in that community, went to Hebrew school there for 6 years, I guess. And there were very active youth groups in the synagogue that I was involved with. I think we met Shabbos afternoon. There were Shabbos groups that I went to, I remember. And as I got older, I was one of the leaders, but as, of course, younger, I was just one of the kids. And then we used to meet during the week at night. I think when I was older, when I was a teenager already, right? There used to be social meetings of these youth groups during the week, one night a week. So the synagogue really was the center of our religious life and of our social life. That's where all your friends were for the most part, and that's, that was your life.
When you had other kids come from these different communities to your schools, from the neighborhood.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, you had
Right, because it was
kids
one of the
from-
bigger shuls and a very active shul. But I can echo what Carol said. I also was very conscious growing up that I did not have grandparents. And I had a few friends like the Brockfells that were lucky enough to have grandparents, and that was an unusual thing in this community. And then I had friends from school, of course, or from other synagogues that weren't German Jews and who had grandparents as well. So it was something that we felt very deeply. Right, absolutely. There was that gap in our lives.
Can I say something about Hendrik? I'll never forget, I don't know how old I was. It must have been in the establishment of the State of Israel. I remember there must have been some event, and downstairs in the community hall.
And we went to Washington.
No. I'm talking about in the temple itself. And I remember the
Israel
entire
was established?
community singing
You were really
Hatikvah.
little.
And I had no idea what it was.
Carol, that was in 48. You were born in 40.
So maybe I was 3 or 4 or 5, or maybe it was 3 years later. It might have been on an anniversary of it.
The memory of the singing.
The memory of the electricity and the intensity of the emotion.
That must have been the Six-Day War.
No. I was a child.
And then your
I'm talking about as a child.
Maybe it was 48.
Or it was one of the anniversaries. Maybe I was.
belonged there in 48.
You weren't a member.
No, so
All
it
right, so it's an
was.
anniversary.
It was an anniversary, but I remember the intensity. That's what I'm talking about. As a child, I remember this whole group of people standing there. There must have been something going on, and they ended with Hatikvah. First time I ever heard Hatikvah, and the intensity and electricity of the people singing it was in that community. Well, I
I
was a
think it
child
must
who
have
couldn't.
been 46. I mean, the Six-Day War.
No. That was. I was.
I want to ask you.
I was a child.
I want to ask you about the other shuls that you remember.
Yeah, let Helen finish.
Yeah?
Things pop in my head. I'll
Okay.
speak up.
What the other shuls? Did some people leave your shul to go to Breuer? And did some Breuers come to your shul? Or there was a-
Not usual. It would have been a very rare thing. Very rare.
Couldn't take your clothes.
Well, it was also the walking
Right, geographically, it
Where was
wasn't that
Breuer
close.
located?
on Bennett Avenue on
Okay.
187.
Pretty far walk?
Well, we had people that lived in Inwood that walked to Breuer every week. Höxter.
Why is it still there?
Breuer's still
Höxter
there.
is the
Absolutely.
They
name.
lived on Bogatus, on Elwood Bogatus.
No, the Höxters lived on the drive.
Then they moved.
They moved to the,
What other shuls were there that you could have gone to? Do you remember?
Inwood, Jewish...
In the
but that-
Hebrew congregation.
Yeah,
What
but
was
that was a conservative shul.
Okay.
But at that time, the conservative shuls were... The only difference was that they were sitting together.
Women and men, that was it.
That was
Right.
about...
The
And
women
they
didn't have
had,
responsibilities.
they had an
No.
Orthodox rabbi.
They did.
Yes.
Yeah, I had friends who went there.
Yes, and they had an
It was,
Orthodox
it was an
rabbi.
Orthodox service. for
Yes.
sure.
And
We had a synagogue on the same block where we lived.
But Wogalanter, what was the name of that?
Yes.
He was the rabbi.
Yeah.
What's the name of the synagogue?
Inwood something or
Oh,
other.
Inwood Jewish Center.
Yeah,
It was Rabbi Wogalanter.
yeah.
And then there's Beth Alm.
Well, basically, the communities, the whole community, you knew of each other. And you did interact, but you may not have been friends, but you did interact with basically most synagogues in that sense.
Do you think
The
there was
people.
anybody who was an outsider who didn't have a clique of friends? Was there anybody
I mean, who belonged to the synagogue?
who was left out?
There may have been
There
some
ma-
people
probably, I mean, that's normal for any
that
community.
find the group to be cliquish, you know. Is that a
Yeah,
word that
yes.
you understand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there were some people who didn't feel as comfortable maybe, or even didn't try to be as comfortable.
No, we were, the group of people I mentioned, our closest friends. I don't know how open we were to take in you just come today.
I felt it.
Yes. You know,
Form
so,
your friendship.
but is
But
that
we were-
normal or not?
But
I'd like to think it's not, but I think it's
Normal.
probably
Very
but
normal.
it was, but I
Very
don't think
normal.
we
It's on
were
in high schools.
close in
It's even in
that
high
sense
schools.
that we wouldn't open. I can speak only for me and for because we lived in Inwood, so I had friends that came from Inwood, from the Inwood Jewish Center also. Maybe not close friends, but friends. Helen had friends that came from different Jews, like the Brachfeld kids. So it wasn't, I wouldn't, again, I speak for us, we weren't close. We had our own friends, but we weren't close.
No, nobody
Who
was
you know
close, actually.
Well, that's what you mentioned.
My first name is after my father's
too
mother,
more in.
But that's,
and my middle name is after Carolina, it's Karen, but after my mother's mother,
And your first name is after your father's?
my father's mother.
Change the subject for a
Do you have
moment.
a sibling?
I have a sister, Paulette.
And who's she named?
She's named after my father's father, who was Paul, and her middle initial was M, which is after my mother's father, who was Max.
And your brother?
I have a sister.
Oh,
I have a sister 6.5 years younger. She's named after my father's mother, and her middle name is also after my mother's father, Harriet Monica. H the father, the Hedwig, and M the Max, Monica. That is Harriet, isn't it, right?
How many people came to shul on a typical Shabbos?
A lot.
Are we talking 50 men, 100 men,
I would say 100.
100?
But don't forget we had about 1,000 members.
And what?
1,000 members.
Families?
How many
Families.
1,000
Families or
Yes.
1,000 people?
No, families.
1,000
When we
families.
left, when Dad was president, we still had 9 more members.
What year is that?
In the 70s.
In the 70s?
In the 70s, you had 900 members.
Members. Okay, so you had on an average 100, you said about 100 men?
Or more, yes.
And how many women upstairs?
Not many.
I don't know.
She wasn't there.
I was there every Shabbos.
You were not at
No, excuse me, we're going to set the record straight. She said she was here every Shabbos.
I went to shul every Shabbos. I took Harriet. She sat on the side. Oh, yes.
Were there 20 women, 30 women? Oh,
30
I will
women
register
for sure.
incredulous eye from her sister.
Yes,
30.
yes, for
30 women.
sure, for
Okay.
sure.
yeah, you had about 1,000 members, but every Shabbos you had about 100.
More.
Or
100
more.
men.
Yeah.
or more.
For the high holidays, it was packed.
Hi.
They had, for the high holidays,
yeah.
it was a struggle to get a seat.
Yeah.
Well, they had
One
two
year,
services, right?
And
We
with
shared
that, we
the
had to
seat.
fight.
She shared a seat?
She and I,
But that's because we couldn't go together when the kids were little.
yeah, we babysat one of Rosh Hashanah. One day I had the kids and you went, and one, yes.
That's a good way to save money, too.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, when did you leave Inwood and why did you both finally decide to leave your community?
Well, we decided, my husband changed jobs. But we were ready to leave because the community did change by then. We left in 77.
What happened to the community?
Well, the young people didn't stay, like all these kids. They moved away. And the older people died out, sort of. And the whole Inwood section changed, became Spanish
Dominican.
and Dominican. As the Jewish people left, the Spanish people came in. So and the stores were closed. They were not nice stores anymore. I don't think there was no kosher butcher or anything like that anymore. So and my husband changed jobs and we moved to New Jersey.
To New Jersey.
Yeah.
You were out of the house already?
Right. Yeah.
Sister and I were gone.
There were there. I had grandchildren already at
And
that
what
time.
kind of shul did you find in New Jersey?
We found a conservative shul that was still the Orthodox, had an Orthodox rabbi, and was still kept the Orthodox way. And that's why we chose that community we moved to.
What's the name of the shul?
White Meadow Temple.
White?
White Meadow Temple.
In what town is that?
White Meadow Lake, Rockaway.
New Jersey.
It was in Rockaway, New Jersey, and the community was White Meadow Lake.
And did you feel you could renew the kind of situation you had in Inwood? Did you have a good community there?
Well, I managed to, surprisingly, there were members there that belonged to Ohav Sholaum also. So, of course, we got connected.
You reformed your clique.
Well, not really, but more or less, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you the same question. When did you leave and why did you leave Inwood?
Also because the neighborhood had changed. There were then many Spanish people. I worked in a public school right on my block, and I saw the change. And we just felt it's time to leave. And many people left. Many Ohav Sholaum people moved up to Riverdale or to Queens. It was time
And where
To-
did you move to?
to Riverdale.
And how did you pick a new shul?